I'm still shaking as I write this. My hands won't stop trembling, and I don't think they will for a very long time. What started as decorating our Christmas tree turned into discovering something so twisted, so unbelievable, that I'm not even sure where to begin. But I need to tell someone. I need to get this out before I lose my mind completely. My name is Sarah, and up until 3 days ago, I thought I had a pretty normal life. I'm 30-2 years old. Married to my husband David for 7 years. And we live in a quiet suburban neighborhood in Ohio. The kind of place where everyone knows everyone, where kids ride their bikes until the street'll come on, where nothing interesting ever happens. God, I wish that were still true. It was December 1st when this nightmare began. David and I had just finished dinner, and I suggested we finally put up our Christmas tree. We'd been putting it off because we'd both been so busy with work. But December had arrived and our living room looked depressingly bare compared to our neighbors' houses, which were already covered in lights and decorations. David seemed hesitant at first. He said he was tired, that maybe we could do it over the weekend. But I insisted. I love Christmas. It's always been my favorite time of year, and I wanted our home to feel festive and warm. After some gentle nudging, he agreed. We dragged our artificial tree up from the basement. It's one of those pre-minus lit ones, about 7 feet tall, that we'd bought for years ago. Nothing fancy, but it did the job. As we started fluffing out the branches and getting it to look presentably full, I noticed David kept checking his phone, like constantly. Everything okay? He looked up quickly, almost startled. Yeah, fine. That should have been my first red flag, but I brushed it off. David's a software engineer, and he's always dealing with some crisis or another. I figured it was just another bug that needed fixing or a deadline that was approaching. We spent the next hour setting up the tree, arranging the branches, making sure it looked perfect. Then I went to our storage boxes to grab our ornaments. We have this tradition where we each have our own special ornaments that we've collected over the years. And we always hang them together, reminiscing about where each one came from. As I was hanging a glass snowflake near the middle of the tree, reaching deep into the branches to find the perfect spot, my hand brushed against something that definitely wasn't a branch or a light. It was small, hard, rectangular, definitely not part of the tree. What the hell? Pushing branches aside to get a better look. That's when I saw it. A tiny black device, barely bigger than my thumb, nestled deep within the inner branches of our tree. It had a small lens on one side and was attached to the tree's central pole with what looked like a strong adhesive strip. My heart started pounding. I knew immediately what it was. A camera. Someone had put a camera inside our Christmas tree. David, I called out, my voice shaking, come here. He walked over from the kitchen where he'd been getting us some wine. What's wrong? I pointed at the device, my hand trembling. There's a camera in our tree. His face went completely white. Not just pale, but literally drained of all color. His eyes widened, and for a second, he looked like he might throw up. A what? A camera, David. A hidden camera. In our tree. He moved closer, squinting at the device. His hands were shaking to now. I don't. How? My mind was racing. The logical explanation, the one that made me feel sick to my stomach, was that my husband had put it there. But why? To spy on me? To see if I was cheating? The thought was absurd. I'd never even thought about being unfaithful. Or at least I thought I did. Did you put this here? I asked directly, my voice sharper than I intended. What? No, Sarah. I swear to God, I have no idea how they got there. I wanted to believe him. His reaction seemed genuine. The shock on his face looked real. But who else could have put it there? The tree had been in our basement for almost a year. It had been in our living room last Christmas, then stored away. Someone put a camera in our tree, I said slowly. trying to process this. If it wasn't you, then who? David ran his hands through his hair, a nervous habit he's had since I've known him. I don't know. This is insane. Should we call the police? Wait, I said. My brain's starting to work through the logistics. When did we last use this tree? Last Christmas. We took it down around New Year's and put it in the basement. And before that, it was in our living room for about 3 weeks. I looked at the camera again. It was sophisticated looking, not some cheap spy gadget you'd buy online. Has anyone had access to our basement in the last year? David thought for a moment. The plumber came to check the water heater in March, and your sister was here over the summer. Remember? We gave her some of those old boxes of books. My sister Emma. But not that close. Why would she put a camera in our tree? It made no sense. Anyone else? I pressed. My mom was here for Thanksgiving. She went down to get those old photo albums. His mother, Patricia, we'd always had a complicated relationship. She was one of those mothers minus in minus law who smiled to your face but made little comments that cut deep. She'd never thought I was good enough for her precious son. But planting a camera, that seemed extreme even for her. We need to check if it's still recording, David said, reaching for the device. Wait, I grabbed his hand. Don't touch it. Fingerprints. He pulled back. Okay, so what do we do? I pulled out my phone. I'm taking pictures. Document everything before we move it. I took photos from every angle, making sure to capture the camera's position, the way it was mounted, everything. Then carefully, I reached in and removed it from the tree. It was heavier than I expected, and there was a small SD card slot on the side. It records to a memory card, I said, examining it more closely. Which means whoever put this here has been coming back to retrieve the footage. Or what? Or it transmits wirelessly. David's face somehow got even paler. You mean someone could be watching us right now? Not anymore. Not from this camera, at least. I turned the device over in my hands. There was a small brand name etched into the plastic. Something called Spytech Pro. I grabbed my laptop and Googled the brand. It came up immediately. These weren't cheap cameras. They ran about $300 each and could record in high definition, had night vision, motion detection, and yes, wireless transmission capabilities. Reading the specs. This thing can transmit footage to any device within 100-foot range, or upload directly to cloud storage if connected to Wi-Fi. Or Wi-Fi, David said quietly. What? Someone set this up to use our Wi-Fi. They could access it from anywhere in the world. The implications of that hit me like a truck. Someone had been watching us. In our home. For potentially an entire year. I felt violated in a way I can't even describe. Our living room was where we did everything. Where we watched TV. Had conversations, ate meals sometimes, had arguments, made up after arguments. Hell, we'd even had sex on the couch a few times after too much wine. Had someone been watching all of that? I'm calling the police, I said, reaching for my phone. Wait. David grabbed my wrist. Not hard, but firmly enough to make me pause. Maybe we should figure out who did this first. What? Why? He looked uncomfortable. If it's my mom or your sister or someone we know, do we really want to get the police involved right away? That's going to blow up our whole family. I stared at him. David, someone has been spying on us. In our home. This is a crime. I don't care if it's family. I know. Can we at least check the footage first? See what's on there? Then we can decide what to do. I hesitated. Part of me knew he was right that involving the police would create a massive mess, especially if it turned out to be someone we knew. But another part of me was screaming that this was exactly the kind of thinking that let people get away with horrible things. Fine, I said finally. We look at what's on the card. But then we're going to the police. I don't care who it is. David nodded, looking relieved. I ejected the SD card from the camera. It was a 30-gigabyte card, which could hold hours and hours of footage. My hands were still shaking as I inserted it into my laptop's card reader. The card loaded, showing a single folder with dozens of video files. They were dated, going back to last December. Almost exactly 1 year of footage. Oh God, I breathed. This has been recording us for a full year. David leaned over my shoulder as I opened the first file. It was dated December 7th of last year. The footage was crystal clear, showing our living room from the perspective of the tree. We could see the entire room, the couch, the TV, the doorway to the kitchen. I fast-forwarded through the file. It showed me and David putting up the tree, laughing, hanging ornaments. It looked like such a happy memory. I remembered that day. We'd been so excited for the holidays. Now it felt tainted, knowing someone had watched us. I opened another file from later in December. This one showed us hosting a Christmas party. I could see our friends and family moving around, drinks in hand, laughing. The camera had captured everything. This is so messed up, David muttered. I kept opening files. Jumping through the months. January showed us taking down decorations. Then the files jumped to March. That must have been when the tree was moved to the basement, because the footage went dark for several months. Then, in November, the footage started again. Recent footage. Just from the last few weeks. I opened a file from 2 weeks ago. It showed me coming home from work, dropping my bag on the couch, kicking off my shoes. Normal everyday stuff. But watching it felt horrifying. Someone else had seen this. Had watched me when I thought I was alone and safe in my own home. Wait, David said suddenly. Go back to that file from March. The last one before the basement. I navigated back and opened it. The footage showed our empty living room. Nothing was happening for several minutes. Then, someone entered the frame. My breath caught in my throat. It was a woman. Dark hair, average height, wearing jeans and a dark jacket. She walked straight to the tree, reached into the branches, and appeared to be adjusting something. The camera. She was checking the camera, but her back was to the lens. We couldn't see her face. She spent about 30 seconds there, then left the frame. Who the hell is that? I have no idea. I've never seen her before. Play it again. Look for any identifying features. We watched the clip 3 more times. The woman never turned around. She knew exactly where the camera was and kept her face away from it. But on the 4th viewing, I noticed something. Pause, I said. David paused the video. The woman's hand was visible as she reached into the tree. On her wrist was a distinctive bracelet. It was silver with what looked like turquoise stones, arranged in a southwestern-style pattern. Do you recognize that bracelet? I asked. David squinted at the screen. No. Should I? I stared at it for a long moment, something nagging at the back of my mind. I felt like I'd seen it before, but I couldn't place where. Let's keep watching, David suggested. We went through more files. The woman appeared several more times over the months, always just briefly, always checking the camera. Never showing her face. She'd come every few weeks, like clockwork. Then we got to a file from just 3 days ago. November 20-8th. This time the footage showed something different. It was late at night. David and I were in the living room, having what I remembered as a pretty intense argument about his mother. She wanted to come stay with us for 2 weeks over Christmas, and I'd said no, that was too long. David had defended her, and we'd gone back and forth for almost an hour. Watching ourselves argue on camera was surreal and uncomfortable. But that wasn't what made my blood run cold. About 30 minutes into our argument, while we were still going at it, the front door opened. Neither of us had noticed at the time because we were too focused on yelling at each other. But there, clear as day on the footage, someone entered our house. It was the same woman. Same dark hair, same build. She stood in the entryway for a moment, just watching us argue. Then she quietly closed the door and left. Did that just? David couldn't finish the sentence. She was in our house, I whispered. While we were home. She just walked in. How did she get in? The door was locked. Obviously she has a key. We looked at each other, the implications sinking in. This wasn't just someone who'd planted a camera. This was someone who had access to our home, who could come and go as they pleased, who had been watching us for a year. We're calling the police, I said firmly. Right now. I don't care who this is. David nodded, looking terrified. Yeah. Okay. I reached for my phone. But before I could dial, it started ringing. Unknown number. Something told me to answer it. Hello? Sarah. The voice was female, calm, almost friendly. I see you found my camera. My heart stopped. Who is this? I think you know who this is. Or at least, you're starting to figure it out. I don't know you. I've never met you. Why are you doing this? There was a pause. You really don't know? That's interesting. David, can you hear me? Are you listening? David had gone rigid beside me. His face was ashen. How are you calling me? I demanded. How do you have my number? I have a lot more than your number, Sarah. I have everything, and now we need to talk. I'm calling the police. No, you're not. Because if you do, I'll release every single video I have of you and David. Every private moment. Every conversation. Everything. And trust me, there are some things on those videos you definitely don't want the world to see. My stomach dropped. What was she talking about? What had the camera captured that was so bad? There's nothing on those videos that I care about people seeing, I said, trying to sound brave. She laughed. Sarah. Sweet, naive Sarah. You have no idea what you're married to, do you? What does that mean? 2:00 in the afternoon. There's a coffee shop on Main Street called The Daily Grind. Come alone, and I'll tell you everything. Bring the police or David, and I go public with the videos. Why should I trust you? Because I'm the only one who's going to tell you the truth. The truth about David. About who he really is. About what he's been hiding from you. I looked at David. He was staring at the phone in my hand like it was a venomous snake. Fine, I said. 2:00. Smart girl. The line went dead. I lowered the phone slowly, my mind reeling. David was breathing hard, panic written all over his face. David, I said carefully. What is she talking about? What have you been hiding from me? Nothing. I swear, Sarah, I have no idea what she means. Then why do you look so terrified? Because some psycho has been spying on us for a year and just threatened you. Of course I'm terrified. He had a point, but something in his reaction felt off. Like there was more to it than just fear of a stalker. I'm going to meet her, I said. No. Absolutely not. This woman is clearly unstable. She could be dangerous. She's had a year to hurt us if that's what she wanted. She had a key to our house. She could have done anything. But she didn't. She just watched. That doesn't make her not dangerous. I need to know what this is about. Who she is. Why she's doing this. David grabbed my shoulders. Sarah, please. Don't do this. We'll figure out another way. Like what? Call the police? She'll release the videos. So what? Let her. We haven't done anything wrong. But his eyes told a different story. He was hiding something. I could see it now, clear as day. Whatever was on those videos, or whatever this woman knew, David was terrified of it coming out. I'm going, I said firmly, pulling away from him. And you're going to tell me right now what she might know about you. Because if I'm walking into this blind, I need to know what I'm dealing with. David sat down heavily on the couch. He put his hands. David. I can't, he whispered. You can't or you won't? I felt something break inside me. 7 years of marriage, and my husband was sitting in front of me, admitting he had secrets he couldn't tell me. Secrets important enough that someone was willing to spy on us for a year to expose them. Then I'm definitely going to meet her, I said coldly. I barely slept that night. David and I didn't speak after that conversation. He went to bed early, and I stayed up, going through more of the footage on the SD card. I was looking for anything that might give me a clue about what this was really about. Most of it was mundane. Us watching TV, David on his laptop. Normal couple stuff. But then I found something interesting in a file from 6 months ago. June 15th. It was a Tuesday afternoon. I'd been at work. The footage showed David at home, which was odd because he'd told me he was going to be in the office that day. He was on his phone, pacing the living room, clearly agitated. He was having a conversation with someone. The camera had an audio recording feature. I turned up the volume. Can't keep doing this, David was saying. A pause while the other person spoke. I know what I agreed to. But things have changed. Sarah's getting suspicious. Another pause. No, she doesn't know anything. But she's not stupid. She's going to figure it out eventually. My heart was pounding. What was he talking about? What was I going to figure out? Look, I just need more time. A few more months, and I'll have everything arranged. Then we can end this. And what? The call seemed to end, and David sat down on the couch, looking exhausted and stressed. He rubbed his face with both hands, then got up and went to the kitchen. The footage continued for a while, but nothing else interesting happened. I checked the other files from around that time period. There were several more calls like that one, always when I was at work. Always the same kind of cryptic conversation. David was clearly involved in something he was hiding from me, something he wanted to end. Was he having an affair? Was that what this was about? But if it was just an affair, why would this mystery woman care? Why spy on us for a year just to expose a cheating husband? That seemed like an insane amount of effort for something that, sadly, happens every day. No, this was something bigger, something worse. The next morning, David tried one more time to convince me not to go to the meeting. Please, Sarah, I'm begging you, don't meet this woman. Give me one good reason why not. Because I'm asking you to trust me. I laughed bitterly. Trust you? You just admitted last night that you're hiding things from me. Why should I trust you? He looked like I'd slapped him. Because I'm your husband. Because I love you. Because whatever you think this is about, it's not what you think. Then tell me what it is. I can't. Then I'm going. I left the house at 1:30, giving myself plenty of time to get to the coffee shop. David didn't try to stop me, but I could feel his eyes on me as I walked to my car. The Daily Grind was a small independent coffee shop downtown. The kind of place that always smelled like espresso and fresh pastries. I arrived at 1:50-5 and ordered a latte. I had no intention of drinking. My stomach was in knots. At exactly 2 o'clock, a woman walked in. She matched the figure from the videos, dark hair, average height. Probably in her late 30s. She wore jeans and a leather jacket. And on her wrist was the turquoise bracelet. She saw me immediately and walked over to my table. Up close, I could see she had green eyes and a small scar on her left cheek. She looked tired, like she hadn't slept well in a while. Sarah, she said, sliding into the seat across from me. Thanks for coming. I didn't have much choice. She smiled sadly. No, I suppose you didn't. I'm Rachel, by the way. Rachel. So are you going to tell me what this is about? Why you've been spying on me and my husband for a year? Rachel leaned back in her chair, studying me. What do you know about David's family? The question caught me off guard. His family? What does that have to do with anything? Everything. It has everything to do with this. So humor me. What do you know? I thought about it. Not much, honestly. His parents divorced when he was young. His dad died about 10 years ago. Heart attack. He has his mom, Patricia, and a younger sister, Amanda, who lives in California. We don't see her much. What else? That's it. David doesn't talk about his family much. He's not close with them, except his mom. And even that relationship is complicated. Rachel nodded slowly. He never mentioned having an older sibling. I frowned. No, he's the oldest. That's what he told you. What are you saying? Rachel reached into her jacket and pulled out a photograph. She slid it across the table to me. The photo showed 3 children, probably ranging in age from about 6 to 10 years old. A boy and 2 girls. The boy looked remarkably like a young David. That's David on the right, Rachel said. The girl next to him is Amanda. And the other girl. She paused, and I looked up at her. That's me, she finished quietly. I stared at the photo, then at her, then back at the photo. You're saying you're David's sister? Half minus sister, technically. We had the same father but different mothers. My mind was racing. But David never mentioned you. In 7 years. He's never once said he had another sister. I know, because as far as he and his mother are concerned, I don't exist. I'm the family secret. The child that was never supposed to be. I sat back, trying to process this. I don't understand. Why would they hide you? Rachel's expression hardened. Because my mother was David's father's mistress. She was his secretary, classic story. They had an affair that lasted for years, and I was the result. When I was born, David's father wanted to do the right thing, wanted to acknowledge me, help raise me. But Patricia, David's mom, she forbade it. Gave him an ultimatum, her or us. He chose his legitimate family, Jesus. But he couldn't completely abandon us. So he set up a trust fund for me, made sure my mother and I were taken care of financially. After he died, that trust was supposed to continue. It was laid out in his will. Let me guess, I said slowly. It didn't. Oh, it did. For a while. But 3 years ago, when I turned 30-5, the trust was supposed to release a large final payment. $200,000. Money my father had specifically set aside for me to start my own business. Buy a house, whatever I wanted. You didn't get it. No. Because David, as the executor of his father's will, blocked it. I felt like the ground was shifting beneath me. Why would he do that? Rachel's eyes filled with tears. Because his mother convinced him that I didn't deserve it. That I was a reminder of his father's betrayal. That giving me that money would be dishonoring their family. So he found a legal loophole, claimed the trust was improperly structured, and tied it up in probate. It's been in litigation for 3 years now, and you've been spying on us because I wanted to understand who he was. Who this man was who would deny his own sister her birthright. I wanted to see what kind of person he'd become. Whether he was a good man who'd made a bad choice, or if he was just like his mother, cold and cruel. I didn't know what to say. If this was true, if David really had a sister he'd never told me about, a sister he was actively denying money that rightfully belonged to her, then I didn't know my husband at all. Why tell me this now? I asked. Why not just go public with it? Why involve me? Rachel wiped her eyes. Because watching you two for the past year, I saw something. I saw that you're a good person, Sarah. You're kind. You're fair. And you're nothing like Patricia. Maybe if you knew the truth, you could talk to David. Make him see reason. Make him do the right thing. And if I can't, then I go public. I release the footage, tell my story to the media. Show the world what kind of man David really is. It'll ruin him professionally, socially. Everything. I looked down at the photo of the 3 children again. Does Amanda know about you? Yes. She's testified in the legal proceedings, confirmed that our father wanted me to have that money. But she doesn't have any power over the trust. Only David does. I need time, I said. Time to process this, to talk to David. Rachel nodded. You have 40-8 hours. That's it. I go public. She stood up to leave, then paused. For what it's worth, I don't want to ruin your life, Sarah. You're innocent in all this. But I'm running out of options. I've tried lawyers. I've tried reaching out to David directly. I've tried everything. This is my last chance to get what my father wanted me to have, what he knew I deserved. Then she was gone, leaving me alone with my cold latte and a photograph that proved my husband had been lying to me for our entire relationship. I sat in that coffee shop for another hour, just staring at the photo. The 3 children looked happy. They were at some kind of park or playground, smiling at the camera. David couldn't have been more than 8 years old. Did he remember this? Remember having a half-minus sister? Or had his mother worked so hard to erase Rachel from their lives that he'd actually forgotten? Finally, I drove home. David was waiting for me, pacing the living room like a caged animal. What did she say? He demanded as soon as I walked in. What does she want? I set my purse down carefully. Why don't you tell me about your sister, David? Your other sister, the one you've never mentioned in 7 years of marriage. All the color drained from his face. Again. He seemed to be doing that a lot lately. What did she tell you? Everything. About your father's affair. About Rachel. About the trust fund you're blocking. David sank onto the couch. It's not that simple. Then explain it to me. Make me understand why you've been lying to me for our entire relationship. He was quiet for a long moment. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. I was 7 when I found out about Rachel. My mom sat me and Amanda down and told us that our father had another family, that he'd betrayed us, that he'd chosen to love another woman and another child more than he loved us. That's not what happened, though, is it? He didn't leave you. He chose to stay with your family. But he wanted to leave. My mom showed us letters he'd written to Rachel's mother. He'd written about leaving us, about starting over with them. He only stayed because my mom threatened to take everything in the divorce, to make sure he'd never see us again. I sat down across from him. David, you were 7. Your mother was hurt and angry. Of course, she told you a version of events that made her look good and your father look bad. You don't understand what it was like, he said, his voice rising. Growing up knowing that your dad had another kid somewhere. That he divided his love, his money, his time. Everything that should have been ours, he was giving to them too. So when he died and left Rachel that trust fund, you decided she didn't deserve it. My mother needed help. She was struggling financially. The house needed repairs. She had medical bills. And my dad left this stranger, this reminder of his infidelity, $200,000 while my mom got a modest life insurance policy in the house. So you stole from your sister to help your mother. Rachel is not my sister, David shouted, jumping to his feet. She's nothing to me. She's a mistake. An accident. She has no claim to my family. I stared at the man I'd married, and I realized I didn't recognize him. This wasn't the kind, thoughtful person I'd fallen in love with. This was someone else entirely. Someone who'd been poisoned by his mother's bitterness and resentment for so long that he couldn't see straight anymore. She's your father's daughter, I said quietly. She's your flesh and blood. And your father wanted her to have that money. It was his dying wish. My father didn't know what he wanted. He was confused at the end. Guilty about the affair. That trust was set up out of guilt, not love. You don't know that. Yes, I do. Because he never fought for her when it mattered. He never left my mom. He never brought Rachel into our lives properly. He kept her hidden, kept her secret. If he'd really loved her, he would have done things differently. Or maybe, I said slowly, he was trapped. Trapped between the family he'd committed to and the child he'd created with someone else. Maybe he did the best he could in an impossible situation. David shook his head stubbornly. You don't get it. No, I get it perfectly. Your mother has been manipulating you your entire life. Feeding you this narrative that Rachel is the enemy, that she's trying to steal from your family. And you've believed it because it's easier than facing the truth. And what truth is that? That your father wasn't perfect. That he made mistakes. That he hurt people. But that he tried to make it right in the end. And by blocking that trust, you're not protecting your mother or honoring your father. You're just perpetuating the pain. David sat back down, his head in his hands. What do you want me to do, Sarah? Release the trust. Give Rachel what your father wanted her to have. And tell your mother that enough is enough. He looked up at me with red eyes. If I do that, my mom will never forgive me. Then that's her choice. But you're a grown man. David, you're not responsible for managing your mother's emotions. You're responsible for doing what's right. Rachel spied on us for a year, he said. She invaded our privacy, threatened us. And you want me to reward that? I want you to do what you should have done 3 years ago, regardless of what Rachel did or didn't do. We sat in silence for a long time. The Christmas tree stood in the corner, still and decorated, a monument to how quickly everything had fallen apart. There's more, David said finally. What do you mean? To why I blocked the trust. It's not just about my mom. My stomach dropped. Tell me. He took a deep breath. 3 years ago, when Rachel's trust was supposed to pay out, I just made a terrible investment. A business opportunity with a college friend. He convinced me to put in $50,000, promised huge returns. It was going to be our retirement fund, our nest egg. Remember when I told you that investment had paid off and we used the money for the down payment on this house? I nodded slowly, already seeing where this was going. It didn't pay off. I lost everything. All $50,000, and I panicked. We needed that down payment. You were so excited about buying a house. It was just sitting there, and I had the authority to delay the payout. You took Rachel's money, I whispered. I borrowed it, he insisted. I was going to pay it back. I swear I was. I just needed time to recoup my losses to earn it back. That's why I've been working so much overtime, taking on extra projects. I've been trying to replace what I took. I felt numb. Our house, the home we lived in for 3 years, that I decorated and loved and thought of as ours. It was bought with stolen money. How much did you take? $30,000 for the down payment. And the rest? The other $170,000? It's still in the trust. Frozen because of the legal proceedings I initiated. I stood up. I need to get out of here. Sarah, please, let me explain. Explain what? That you're a liar? That our entire marriage has been built on secrets and stolen money? It's not like that. Then what is it like, David? Because from where I'm standing, you stole from your sister, lied to me, bought our house with money that wasn't yours, and then kept lying for 3 years. What part of that am I misunderstanding? He didn't have an answer. I grabbed my car keys and headed for the door. Where are you going? He called after me. I don't know. Away from you. I drove aimlessly for hours, my mind spinning. Eventually, I ended up at my sister Emma's house. She took one look at my face and pulled me inside. Over tea and tissues, I told her everything. Rachel, the trust fund, the stolen money. All of it. Holy shit, Emma breathed when I finished. Sarah, I don't even know what to say. Tell me what to do. Do you still love him? I thought about that. How could I love someone who'd lied to me so thoroughly? But then I thought about all the good times, the years of laughter and support and partnership. Hadn't it? I don't know, I admitted. What do you want to happen? I want David to do the right thing. To release the trust, give Rachel her money, admit what he did. And if he doesn't, then Rachel goes public. And probably our marriage ends either way. Emma squeezed my hand. You can stay here as long as you need to. I ended up staying at Emma's that night. David called and texted repeatedly, but I didn't answer. I needed space to think. The next morning, I finally responded to one of his texts. I'm coming home at noon. Have Rachel there. And your lawyer. We're going to fix this today. His response came quickly. Okay. When I arrived home at noon, David was in the living room with Rachel and a man in a suit who introduced himself as Thomas Green, David's attorney. The Christmas tree was still up, still undecorated. The camera now sitting on the coffee table like evidence at a trial. Thank you for coming, I said to Rachel. She looked nervous but hopeful. I turned to David. Tell her what you told me last night. David looked at the floor. I took $30,000 from your trust to buy this house. I'm sorry. Rachel's eyes widened. You what? I was desperate. I lost money in a bad investment, and we needed it for a down payment. I convinced myself it was just a loan, that I'd pay it back. But then I couldn't earn it fast enough, and the longer it went on, the harder it became to admit what I'd done. So I kept the trust tied up in legal proceedings to buy myself more time. You've been stealing from me for 3 years, Rachel said, her voice shaking. Living in a house bought with my money, while I've been struggling, working 2 jobs, living in a tiny apartment. I know. There's no excuse. Rachel turned to the lawyer. What happens now? Can I press charges? Thomas Green cleared his throat. Technically, what David did was embezzlement. You could pursue criminal charges, yes, or we could handle this civilly. I want my money, Rachel said firmly. All of it. Plus interest. And I want it now. We don't have all of it, I said. We have some savings, about $40,000. That can go to Rachel immediately. The rest will have to come from selling the house. David's head snapped up. Sell the house? We bought it with stolen money, David. We don't have a right to keep it. But where will we live? I don't know. Maybe that's something we should have thought about before committing fraud. Rachel looked at me with something like gratitude. You'd really do that? Sell your house to pay me back? It's not my house. It never was. Over the next hour, we worked out the details with Thomas. David would immediately release the trust, allowing the full $170,000 still frozen in it to be paid to Rachel. Our $40,000 in savings would go to her as well, with the proceeds from the sale paying off our mortgage and whatever was left going to Rachel to cover the remaining $10,000 we owed her, plus interest and damages. Rachel, in exchange, agreed not to press criminal charges and not to release any of the footage she gathered. I never wanted to destroy you, she said to David as she prepared to leave. I just wanted what Dad intended for me to have, what I deserved. After she left, David and I sat in our living room in silence. Our house that wasn't really our house anymore. I'll move out, David said finally. Find an apartment. Give you space. Yeah, I said. That's probably a good idea. Are we? Is this the end? I looked at him. This man I'd pledged my life to, and I honestly didn't know. I don't know, David. Right now I can't even look at you without feeling betrayed. So maybe it is the end. Or maybe once we've both had time to process everything, we can figure out if there's anything left to salvage. At either way, you need to work on yourself. Get therapy. Figure out why you thought any of this was acceptable. My mom is going to lose it when she finds out. Your mom is part of the problem. The sooner you realize that, the better. He nodded slowly. I really am sorry, Sarah. For all of it. You deserved better. Yeah, I said. David moved out that evening. He went to stay with a friend while he looked for an apartment. I stayed in the house alone, surrounded by boxes of Christmas decorations we'd never finished putting up. That was 2 weeks ago. The house is on the market now. We've had several showings and one offer we're considering. Rachel and I have actually become friends, oddly enough. She's a graphic designer, funny and creative, and nothing like the villain David's mother had painted her as. I've started seeing a therapist to work through everything. The betrayal, the lies, the violation of having been spied on for a year. It's going to take a long time to process it all. David and I have talked a few times. He started therapy too. He's admitted that his mother's influence on him has been toxic, that he's allowed her resentment and bitterness to poison his relationship with Rachel and, ultimately, with me. He's working on it. Whether it's enough to save our marriage, I don't know yet. Patricia, David's mother, did indeed lose it when she found out what had happened. She called me screaming, accused me of betraying the family, of siding with that woman. I hung up on her and blocked her number. I have no patience for her manipulation anymore. The strangest part of this whole nightmare is that I keep thinking about that camera. How Rachel spent a year watching us, trying to understand who David was. And in a weird way, the footage gave her more insight into our relationship than I had living in it. She saw the cracks, the secrets. The moments when David was alone and stressed and clearly hiding something. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if she'd never planted that camera. Would David have eventually told me the truth? Would he have found a way to pay Rachel back without me ever knowing what he'd done? Or would we have just continued on, building a life on a foundation of lies until it eventually collapsed under its own weight? I guess I'll never know. What I do know is that I'm grateful the truth came out, as painful as it's been. Because I'd rather live alone with the truth than in a beautiful house built on lies. The Christmas tree is still up, by the way. I still haven't decorated it. I'm not sure I will. Every time I look at it, I think about that tiny camera hidden in its branches, recording our lives, capturing our secrets. In a way, that tree represents everything that's happened. It looks perfect and festive on the outside, but inside, hidden in the branches where you can't see, there's something dark and wrong. I think that's what secrets do. They hide in the branches of our lives, small and easy to overlook, until someone finally finds them. And when they're exposed, everything changes. I'm putting our house on the market next week, starting over. And maybe, eventually I'll find a way to love Christmas again. But it's going to take a while.